if I'm going into a thrift store and just like quickly pacing and scanning and just not finding anything and leaving, I'm definitely leaving stuff behind because I'm just not digging too deep. Hey y'all, welcome back to my weekly show where I talk about the ups and downs and in-betweens of selling on eBay. We've got a lot of viewer questions today, so we're going to waste no time and dig right in. All right, Zuperfly asks, have you ever been outsourcing and the person selling at the garage sale was so desperate to get rid of stuff that they gave you everything for free? How do I deal with an overwhelming amount of free stuff that may or may not be worth anything, but only takes up space? So I think what you want to do in this situation, you have a bunch of stuff you got for free, is one, you just want to see what has value, right? What is actually worth your time reselling? So sit down, take an hour, get your phone out and just go through everything and make, I would say, 3 different piles. One pile is this is valuable, it's listed on eBay. One pile is like this should be donated because it's not valuable enough to list on eBay, but somebody else might get the use out of it. And the third pile is just to like trash it, just get rid of it. With those 3 piles, you can usually go through a bunch of stuff and just put it into those 3 piles. Then take the pile of stuff that needs to be donated and go donate it. While you might have gotten this stuff for free, there is a cost to it. And I found that cost is like to your mental health. Just having a bunch of junk around that's not going to sell or is, not going to get listed or whatever is just going to add to the clutter of your space and therefore the clutter of your mind as well. So just get rid of it. I think like one of the best feelings obviously is like getting a nice sell on eBay, but an almost as good feeling is just like getting rid of a bunch of junk, purging a bunch of stuff that's been sitting in your death pile for a while or been cluttering up your space. Like it feels so freeing. So don't get caught in the trap of trying to just, squeeze as much value out of stuff that is ultimately worthless. Just get rid of it, get it out of there. For the stuff that can't be donated, just, get rid of it, trash it. If it is trash, then trash it. And then the stuff that does have value, get it up on eBay.
Hey Justin, my name is Kevin.
Hey Kevin.
I've been watching your channel the last couple months and I appreciate all the advice that you have given all of us. I plan to switch over to Flipwise from a certain platform, but I have 3 questions before I do that. Flipwise, do you plan to develop an app for the App Store? I've noticed a lot of resellers use their phone for a lot of stuff pertaining to eBay, and it would definitely make everything a lot easier. My second question is, I've noticed when you're pulling Flipwise up on your personal computer on the videos, there is a picture of the item. Do I have to manually upload that, or does it take it straight off the listing? My third question is, I have a store that's about 350 listings. I'm looking to upgrade to 500, then hopefully in the future, 1,000. My question is, does the price go up every time I put an increment of listings on? If so, what are the price increments that it goes up? Hey, thank you for answering my question, and I appreciate everything you do for the reselling community. And I hope that you hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, man. Thank you.
Right on, Kevin. Thank you so much for sending in that question. By the way, if you want to send in a question like this, you're welcome to. There's a link in the description below. Click that. You can record a video or record your audio of asking a question, and I'll put you on the channel like that. But Kevin, to answer your question here, you got a couple about Flipwise. So Flipwise is the eBay automation platform that I built that automates the record keeping process so that you don't have to do any manual data entry. You don't have to keep spreadsheets so that you know how your business is performing or be ready for tax time. Flipwise kind of does all of that for you automatically. And so your questions here, do you plan to develop an app? And so Flipwise is what's called a responsive web application. So it works in the browser. It's not a native app. It doesn't, show up in the App Store or whatever Google's App Store is called, the Play Store maybe. But it's a responsive web app. So it works in the browser and it works on literally any device that has a browser and a internet connection. So it does work on your mobile device. You just pull it up in your mobile browser. It's fully functional across all devices. And so it does actually work on your phone, but we don't have a standalone app. We may introduce a standalone app in the future. If we did, it would be kind of just a wrapper of what the experience is right now. Because again, it's fully functional on mobile right now. And so we may sort of wrap it in a native app and then put that in the App Store to make it easy to access via an app that way. So we may do that in the future, but you can use it on your mobile devices right now. So your second question here, do I have to manually upload the image? No. So when you sign up for Flipwise, it ingests all of your active listings and all of your sold listings going back 2 years. So it brings all of that data in, including the pictures, and allows you to define your acquisition data, which is what we call kind of your cost of goods, where you bought your items from, when you bought it, where you have it stored in your inventory. So it pulls all that in for you, including the image, and then you just go in and input that data, the data that's sort of eBay doesn't know about, right? Or that's only in your head or only in one of your spreadsheets. You just have to put that into Flipwise, or we can import it into Flipwise automatically if you have an existing spreadsheet. You also asked about the pricing tiers. We do price based on store size. So if you're a new eBay seller and you have under 25 listings, Flipwise is free to use. Beyond the free plan, we do price based on store size. And we do that because the larger the store, the more expensive it is for us as operators of the platform to operate the platform. And so we sort of tier things up based on store size. And if you go to, if you just go to flipwise.app and you look at our pricing page, you can see kind of the different tiers there. You can see the 0 to 24 listings is free. Then between 25 and 99 listings is $10 a month. Between 100 and 500 listings is $20 a month, 500 to 1,000 is $29.99 a month, and just like that, just kind of scales up like that. But you can see all that on the website, so check it out. But appreciate the questions. Thank you. Cynthia asks, what is the etiquette on offers? I sent a potential buyer an offer after a couple of days of back and forth in messages. Yes, red flag. I finally sent them an offer and now nothing. In the meantime, I've received an offer from another buyer. Do I need to wait for the offer I sent to expire, or can I accost the offer I received? But Cynthia, I think there's no red flags there at all. I mean, you sent a potential buyer an offer after a couple of days of back and forth. I mean, I guess maybe sometimes I talk about problematic buyers and asking a bunch of questions, but don't let that scare you from just interacting with potential customers, because I definitely do interact with potential customers. When I don't, though, is when they just send the types of messages that often lead to problematic situations later. Like if they're asking questions that can be answered in the description below, or if they're asking very detailed questions that suggest that they're not going to appreciate a used item and they're going to expect that it's brand new, for example. But to answer your question, there, no etiquette there at all. You can send out a bunch of offers, and it's on the burden's on the buyer to accept the offer. The first person to accept the offer wins it, and you should feel comfortable sending out as many offers as you can, no matter whether there are outstanding offers. So I wouldn't worry about it at all. Just send them out and take the first best offer you get.
Hello, Justin. Thanks for the channel.
Sure.
My question is about garment measurements. In the last video, you showed a reseller's measuring stick. So say if a garment actually measures 40 inches across the chest, it's not going to actually fit a 40-inch chest. It's going to fit 38 inches or less, because you need some room to be able to wear the garment. So my question is, do you point this out to the buyers, that a garment measuring 40 inches across the chest does not actually fit 40 inches? Because I just got a feeling that most buyers wouldn't understand this. Thanks very much.
Sure, Helen. Thanks for reaching out. Good question. Yeah. So when you put measurements in, typically you measure kind of the what they call pit to pit, or the chest measurement for a shirt, just from each side. And then I don't know what you call the other measurement. Usually it's from the top of the back of the neck down to the lowest hanging part of the shirt. And yeah, you're giving the measurements of the shirt there, not necessarily of the human being that's wearing the shirt. And so I've never specified anything beyond just that. And my reasoning for that, I think when people go to buy clothing items on eBay and are looking at measurements, they have in their head what the measurement is of a shirt that fits them well. At least that's how I handle it, because I sometimes go on eBay and buy shirts and I check the measurements. And I check the measurements not by measuring my own chest, but I check the measurements by measuring other shirts that fit me really well. And then I find other shirts that have that exact same measurement. So that's my reasoning, but it's a good question and I don't have the answer to it. And so if y'all have an idea, let me know in the comments below. Should you be changing measurements or including measurements, that reflect what the size of the person should be that's actually wearing the shirt? I've never done it, never had any issues, but curious to hear if y'all do that or have any other advice related to that. So let me know. All right, let's get into my sales for the week. By the way, I'll be answering more viewer questions sprinkled throughout all of these top 10 sales. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comment section below and I will answer them in a future video. By the way, I have time codes in the description below, so if you want to jump to a very specific question, look for those time codes and you can do so there. All right, looks like I had a gross income of $1,088 this week and a net income of $662. Pretty good week for sure. 1,732% ROI and a 50% net profit margin. Looking down here, I had 30 new listings. My goal is 35, so I just lost that goal by about 5, and 27 sales over the week. My average time to sell was 5 months, and the total spent on new inventory over the past 7 days was $82. Coming in at number 10 is this Inmate Iraqi Freedom Correctional Facility Psychotic Rehabilitation Ward shirt. Very weird shirt. I just saw this where it was at a thrift store, I think. No, it was at an estate sale. It's just a very unique shirt, and I really don't exactly know what it means, but I figured somebody would probably want this. I only paid, $2? I paid $1. It sold for $27.99. That's $21 plus $6.99 in shipping. I had a net return for the 10th best flip of $17.44. It's a 1,700% ROI, 62% net profit margin. Just a weird t-shirt, and it turns out the guy who bought it has the same t-shirt in black, and he wanted it in yellow also. So there you go. Coming in at number 9 are these Lutron Diva dimmer switches. I got these at a garage sale for $1 a piece, so I had $2 total into it. They sold for $30 on the best offer. Free shipping with a net return of $18.45 for the 9th best flip of the week. This one sold to somebody who lived about a mile away, and I just really think it's funny when I pick something up at a garage sale locally, take it home, list it on eBay, then sell it to somebody. They could have gone to that garage sale, but I always sort of want to surprise the buyer and just drop it in their mailbox, but I'm sure that's going to create more issues. And I don't think you can actually do that. I think it's illegal to put stuff into other people's mailboxes if you're not like a mail person. So technically illegal. Don't put anything in anyone's mailbox, but put it on the doorstep instead. But even doing that, if you're not selecting local drop off, they could contest that they never got it. It's a pain. So even when I sell things to people who live very close to me, I still ship it to them. So I would recommend you do the same. Mark in Iowa asks, sometimes I pick up items from estate sales that have a musty or cigarette odor. Do you have suggestions for how to remove those odors? These items are not clothing, so I can't just throw them in the washing machine. Hey, Mark. Yeah, so you have to be very careful when buying items used from thrift stores or garage sales or estate sales or flea markets like that, because often if they have cigarette smell in particular, it can completely undermine the value of that item, and it's very, very difficult to get it removed. And in fact, if I see clothing that I think would otherwise be worth a decent amount of money, but I give it the sniff test and it smells like cigarettes, I will often just pass on it because it's really difficult to completely get that smell out. And I just don't want a buyer who's expecting to get a not cigarette smelling shirt, get the shirt and have it smelling like cigarettes. It sounds like you also are not selling clothing in this situation, but the same rule applies. And often it's even more difficult to get the cigarette smell out of things that are not clothing for the reasons you suggest. You can't actually wash them. But for all items, one thing that I do to get rid of some of those weird smells or musty smells is I just put the items outside. I let them breathe for a while and just let them sit outside of the environment that gave them those smells. And you often get this at estate sales where houses just have a certain smell, or you're pulling something out of a basement. It's been sitting in the basement for 30 years. And so just getting it out of that environment, getting it in open air where there's breeze and all that, and letting it sit for as long as you possibly can, it's often going to do a really good job of getting rid of those musty smells and sort of returning it to a more neutral smell. I also have had luck buying some of these sort of charcoal bags. I think they're just bags of activated charcoal that you can put together. You can put it with the item in a closed area, and that will sort of suck up that smell. And so I've bought books, for example, that have had a really weird smell. And so I'll put the stack of books in a paper sack and put some of those activated charcoal bags in there with it, and I'll let it sit for a month and pull it out. And it does a really good job actually of doing that. So those are my two methods, is just sort of let it breathe outside of the environment, which gave it the initial smell, and or, trying some of that activated charcoal. But if it's cigarette smoke, I just really don't risk it. I've found it's very difficult to completely get rid of it. And if I'm smelling it and I still can smell that faint smell of cigarette smoke, then I can bet that my buyer is going to as well. So I just don't end up selling those things. So good luck. SDVLT asks, can you please break down the seller summary, please? I cannot understand the actual profit I make on an item, and all the insights in general confuse me, especially as payment is affected after delivery. Thank you. Sure. I'm not sure what you mean by seller summary, if you mean something specific there, but I'm going to take this question to mean like, how do I know how much money I'm making on my items that I sell? And it can be a little bit confusing, but I'll break it down and make it super easy to figure out. So first of all, when you sell something on eBay, you sell it for a total amount, a total sales amount. That includes how much you actually sold the item for, let's say $100, and how much the buyer paid in shipping. And so if you had $15 in shipping on top of that, then the buyer paid $115 for that sale. You made a gross amount of $115. Now you have to start subtracting your expenses from that. You have platform fees. So you have to pay a certain percentage back to eBay for using their platform. That's going to lower that net return by a little bit. Then you also have to pay to ship the item. And so you got $15 in shipping, but you have to go and ship the item as well. And so it doesn't really matter how much the buyer actually paid for shipping. You have to ship the item. And if you end up shipping it for a little bit less than what they paid, well, you made a little bit more money on it. If you ship it for a little bit more than what they paid, well, then you lost a little bit more money on that. But either way, you have a total gross amount that includes the sale price plus the shipping paid by the buyer. Then you get that money, and then you get your fees taken out of it, and then you get your actual cost to ship that you paid as a seller taken out of that. And that's going to give you, first of all, like your first look at your net is that after all fees and shipping costs, you've made, let's say, $90. And then you have to, subtract the last of your net return, which is typically your cost of goods, how much you paid to purchase the item. So let's say you paid $50 to purchase the item. Well, if your net return is down to 90 after fees and shipping, then take out your COGS and you're left with $40 in net profit. So it's pretty much that easy. And if you look at one of your orders on eBay, I just pulled one up right here. It's going to tell you right here, it's going to say what your buyer paid, $11.65. They also paid $6.99 in shipping. Then they also paid $1.82 in sales tax. Now that's where it gets a little bit confusing because your order total here is $20.46, but you didn't actually make $20.46 on that because eBay collects the sales tax from the buyer and remits it out to the state. So that never hits your balance at all. So what you really made was $20.46 minus $1.82. And then you have this other box here that says what you earned. And so you had an order total of $20.46. You minus out that $1.82 from sales tax, like I just said. Then you minus out your selling costs. This is your shipping label, what you paid to ship it, and the transaction fees, $2.67. That's the platform fees that eBay charges you for using their platform. And you're left with a total of $10.90 in your order earnings. That does not include your cost of goods because eBay doesn't know how much you paid for something. If I look at this exact same item on Flipwise, we'll take a look here. You're going to see this same thing. You're going to see this $11.65 plus $6.99 in shipping was a total of $18.64. Flipwise does not consider sales tax because, again, eBay collects it and remits it for you. It never touches your balance, so we just sort of ignore it in Flipwise. And then we break down all of your fees. So your final value fee of 40 cents, that's fixed. Your final value fee of $2.27, which is a percentage. And then that $5.07 cost of goods brings you down to $10.40 as a net return on this order in particular. But what that doesn't include is the cost of goods over here, because your cost of goods is 50 cents on this one. I paid 50 cents for this PlayStation controller. So at the end of the day, my net return on this was $10.40. That's the order total minus all fees minus my cost of goods. So hopefully that makes sense. Coming in at number 8 is this large Coppercraft metal bar tray. This thing, I think my wife picked it up. She had to have because I have no idea what it is. $5 at a Goodwill. That's a good thing about going out and thrifting or sourcing with another person, my wife in this case, is that it just doubles what you can find. Because my wife has knowledge on things that I just have no idea. I would have walked past this. I would have not even given it a second look. I would have no idea that it has value. Just to me, it's like, I don't know, like why would this be any different than like something you buy at Hobby Lobby for $5? But she has an eye for that type of thing. She sold it for $36.98. That's $26.99 plus $9.99 in shipping. The net return for the 8th best flip of the week, $19.13 for this faux leather metal bar tray thing. So good on her. Coming in at number 7 is this Till Gooden coffee mug. I just bought this just past weekend at a Savers. Paid $1.60 for it. I love a good coffee mug. This is one of my favorite categories to buy and sell in, even though I really don't make a whole lot of money off of coffee mugs. The challenge with coffee mugs is often they're just a little bit more expensive to ship than you want them to be, especially back before Ground Advantage existed. You really wanted to try to get things to go out first class, and coffee mugs usually are right around 1 pound, and then you put them in a box and they're over 1 pound, and so you can't ship them first class. You'd have to ship them priority. It's a little bit better. Well, I don't think it's necessarily better. This cost $9.02 via Ground Advantage to ship, so that's probably about what you would have paid in priority shipping back then. But anyway, I just like coffee mugs. I like collecting them. I have a huge collection of them back there and throughout the house. I also just have a knack, I think, for finding coffee mugs that are likely to have value, and that's just because I've been buying and selling coffee mugs for a long time. This one was interesting. A couple things about it. Till Gooden, I guess, is an artist. This was made in the USA, so it was stamped on the bottom, made in the USA. It was also backwards. So this had the artist's signature down here, but it was backwards. It was like they printed it on backwards. And I don't know if it was supposed to be like that. I could find no comps whatsoever for this exact mug. And in fact, only one other Till Gooden mug had sold for this exact same price. That's why I picked it. I probably could have got more money for it, honestly. As soon as I listed it, it shot up in views and watchers. I think I had 4 or 5 watchers within the first 5 minutes. Dogs are saying hello. This thing just sold super quickly, less than a day. So I probably could have got more money for it, but not bad. $21.85 for the 7th best flip of the week. Freddie asks, just wondering, Justin, why do you go out of the way to say your ROI? It should just be dollars and cents. I may only make 30% ROI on something I paid $30 and sold for $100, but I made more than a ROI selling something for 25 cents that I sold for $8. What gives? Yeah, Freddie, you're right. ROI is sort of a fun vanity metric. I do like including it. I do like talking about it. It's really fun to know that you took $1 and turned it into $100 and you got just an excellent ROI. But it's not a good indicator of the success of your business on its own. It's because what you said is very true. You can have an extremely high ROI, but a very low net return. Or you can have a very low ROI and extremely high net return. And at the end of the day, we're trying to make money here. So ROI on its own, not super helpful, but it is fun. And I like to talk about it. I like to include it. I think a lot of metrics are important. And what is good too is understanding trends. And so I know that my average ROI is usually right around 600%. And so if I look at a week and I'm at 300%, like what's going on here? Why is my ROI lower? And I'll look like, oh yeah, it's because I've been spending more money on inventory. I spent, my cost of goods has increased. And so it allows you to sort of pick out trends and discrepancies in those trends when you're tracking all sorts of metrics and seeing how they pace over time. So, but yeah, ROI on its own, not super helpful, just kind of fun. The Shangler asks, hey Justin, so I just had a less than ideal situation that I want to hear your take on. I had a buyer buy a ton of vintage Star Wars items, so I sent out all of it in the same box, but it seems that one of the items had a different buyer. That buyer just opened an item not arrived case and is pretty mad. Thoughts? Well, yeah, I'd probably be pretty mad if I was that buyer as well because they paid for an item and then never got it. And so you made a mistake here. You accidentally, put a bunch of items together that you thought were going to the same buyer. Turns out one of those items was not going back to the same buyer. So what you need to do immediately is just refund that buyer. They don't have the item. They paid for it. Give them their money back. Consider it a canceled loss. What you can try to do is get that item back from the buyer that you accidentally sent it to. They're really under no obligation other than their own ethics to return that item back to you. And so hopefully they do. Talk to them, give them a prepaid shipping label. You can do that. You can go to Pirate Ship and create a label from their address to your address and mail it to them. Somehow get that item back to you and then you can relist it and resell it. Some people try to work it out so that one buyer can send the item that was wrongly sent to them to the other buyer. I would not recommend that. It's just a hassle to try to coordinate and a lot of things can go wrong. So refund your buyer, say sorry, admit your mistake, and then reach out to that other buyer and say, hey, I accidentally sent you something that I shouldn't have sent you. Can you please send it back? Hopefully you get it back. But yeah, that's what I would do in this situation. Coming in at number 6 is this Outward Hound Pet Travel Fanny Pack and Bowl. This thing, Outward Hound, is a pretty good brand. I ended up finding these at thrift stores quite a bit in garage sales. This came from an estate sale, though, for $2. It's just like a fanny pack that you might wear when you're out walking your dog and holding treats and water bottles and things like that. And then it comes with this little fabric water bowl, so you can fill it up with water, and your dog has a little bowl to drink from as well. But Outward Hound is a good brand to look for. $36.98 for the 6th best flip of the week. The net return on this one was $23.76. Coming in at number 5 is this Ford Explorer driver power switch. I got a couple boxes of these from my brother who got them from a friend who owns a junkyard. These things sell really well, but they're kind of a pain. I'm almost done selling them. I had hundreds of them and they've all been listed and most of them have sold, but I've got maybe a dozen left. I would use these switches as I would dig into them when I didn't have anything else to list. And so it took me about a year to actually go through and list all of them because they were dirty. They required cleaning. I have no way to test them, but I list them as untested. This one sold for $41.49 for the 5th best flip of the week. That's $26.24 on the net return. I have a cost of goods of $3 into this one. So not a bad little buy if you can find these types of car parts. They can do well. Brian asks, when I'm looking at an item to decide whether or not it is good for purchasing, I was wondering whether other people's items that have sold, if there's a way to know how long they had it listed before it sold. Kind of a way of judging, is this a good item to purchase and sell? Sure. Thanks, Brian. I don't know that there's a way to tell for how long an item has been listed through eBay. I don't think that there is. There may be something that tells you like how long it's left until the listing expires, but I don't think that's going to tell you how many times it's been automatically relisted by eBay, for example. So you have no real way, to my knowledge, to look at an item through search, an active item through search, and see that it's been listed for a year, for example. But what you want to do instead is get a similar type of information by looking at the sold listings. And so when you're out trying to buy stuff to resell, you're at a thrift store, you're at a flea market, and you're trying to decide, is this something worth reselling or not? There's a lot of variables you want to look at before deciding whether or not to buy it to resell. The first and most important item is just understanding its value. And you can't just look at active listings to understand its value, because active listings are the active market value. And that's often very different than the sold market value. Often things are listed for much higher than they actually sell for. So you want to look at both active and sold to get an understanding of the difference between the two. And that'll help you determine what the actual value of your item is. The actual value of the item is what it's selling for, not what it's listed for. But while you're doing this, you can also look at the sell-through rate. And that will help you determine how long it's going to take for an item to sell roughly. It's not like an exact science. It's not going to tell you this thing will sell in 45 days and 13 hours, but it is going to give you a rough idea of how long it's going to take to sell by comparing the number of sold listings to the number of active listings, or that's known as the sell-through rate. A lot of people like to use a specific formula for sell-through rate. I do not advocate for a specific sell-through rate formula. Instead, I advocate for a feeling. You should be getting a feeling for what the sell-through rate is on something. And what I mean by that is you want to check the number of active listings. Let's say there's 100. You want to check the number of sold listings. Let's say there's 10. That means there's 100 active listings identical to yours. That means 100 other people are trying to sell the same thing that you are. That's your competition. And then there's 10 sold listings. That means only 10 buyers have come by in the last 90 days to find this particular item and buy it. And so when they do that, so that's like, what is that? 10 divided by 90. That's like, that means one buyer comes by once every 9 days, about once a week roughly, to buy the item. And then there's 100 out there to choose from. And so with that, you can kind of start to understand how long it could take for your item to sell. That's not an excellent sell-through rate. It could be that your item would take many, many months, even upwards of a year plus, to actually sell, because let's say that nobody else listed any of these exact same items and they were just one buyer per week is coming by. That's 100 weeks that yours would potentially take to sell. That's roughly 2 years. And so that's not accounting for any situations where other people might list the same thing, also increasing that total number of active listings in your competition. So again, not an exact science, but doing this, you can start to get a feel for how long it takes for something to sell by checking these metrics. Coming in at number 4 is this rigid water basin wrench. This thing is a garage find. I have had it for a super long time. It was made in 2001, but never opened. I don't remember buying it. But I do remember selling it this past week for $44.99 free shipping, a net return for the fourth best flip of the week on this basin wrench faucet sink tool thing for plumbing. I'm not a plumber. I hate doing plumbing work. It's like electrical work. I don't mind doing very light electrical work, but if it's something that's going to potentially kill me, I call an electrician. I like plumbing even less because I don't know. water seems so much more difficult to control than electricity, because electricity is not going to like drip overnight and fill your basement with electricity, but plumbing can. It just scares me. So I do very little plumbing. And I'm proud of it. Coming in at number 3 is this Pendleton men's coat. I got this at an estate sale about 4 months ago for $2. It sold for $89.98 for the third best flip of the week. My net return on this one was $70.20. Pendleton is just a great brand. This is a big, heavy coat. I knew it was going to be worth it. This estate sale that I got it from, nothing was priced, and they were just basically giving stuff away. I got so much good stuff, including this jacket. It did take 4 months to sell, but yesterday was 100 degrees here. I wonder where I sold this to, but just saying, like, you shouldn't wait to list your coats until the winter time, for example, here in the US. List it right away. Things sell year round. And so, selling a coat in August, definitely happening, making good money nonetheless. So get them up, get them listed. Gary Perry asks, can I help another person run their eBay store that is in a different state than I am, like doing all their listings for them? Would like to help a family member get started selling. Thanks for your time. Yeah, thanks for the question, Gary. You can definitely do that. In fact, a lot of people contract out their whole listing process. There are services out there that will list stuff for you they'll charge you on a per item basis. You just provide the pictures, they list everything for you. So you can certainly help, a family member in this way. What you want to do is just make sure that they're taking very good pictures of the items so that you can accurately describe and create the listings for them. So that's on them to take the pictures, figure out some system that they can get you those pictures. Maybe they're uploading it to like a Google Drive or Dropbox type situation so that you can download it and create the listings from it. And just make sure then they're, following up on the sales when they happen. So definitely possible, nothing wrong with it. And just takes a little bit of a coordination, but maybe a good idea to help a family member get started on their eBay journey. Mr. Nugs asks, hey Justin, loving the videos. When you're outsourcing, do you spend a lot of time in 1 or 2 thrift stores or go to many different stores, maybe only spending 15 minutes at each? I live in a fairly big city, St. Louis, which has many thrift stores. I tend to scan through the store quickly, and if I'm not having any luck, moving on to the next store. Is this a good strategy, or should I spend more time at less stores? Thanks. Sure, Mr. Nugs. I'm also from St. Louis, so I can give you a very particular answer here. I tend to spend more time than 15 minutes at a store. One is thrift stores in St. Louis are fairly spread out. There are certain ones that are nearby other ones, and so I tend to go to pockets of thrift stores on certain days. I'll go to 1, 2, or 3 that are kind of relatively close together. But I have the most success at thrift stores when I slow down, when I try to be curious, when I try to be open-minded, when I try to assume that there are good things out there for me to find. I just need to discover them. If I'm going into a thrift store and just like quickly pacing and scanning and just not finding anything and leaving, like I'm not really hunting. I'm not really searching for stuff. I'm seeing if anything grabs my attention. But some of the best things that you find, you have no idea what they actually are. And you have to do a bit of research and you have to be curious and figure it out. And so I would definitely recommend slowing down, spending more time at each thrift store, being curious, picking things up that you don't recognize, looking stuff up, checking out brands of clothing that you've never heard before. It's not only going to discover potentially profitable items, but it's also going to increase your knowledge of what has value and what doesn't. So I would definitely slow yourself down. Sometimes you just don't have enough time. And so, I drop my daughter off at piano practice every Tuesday, and I end up going to the same thrift store, and I only have about 10 minutes at this thrift store. So, I just don't have time to go deep during that. And sometimes I'm successful, other times I'm not, but I know that on those days, I'm definitely leaving stuff behind because I'm just not digging too deep. And so I would definitely recommend going to less stores and spending more time opening up your curiosity, treating it as like a learning experience. Your objective is to discover, not necessarily just pick out the stuff that is obvious. So that's what I would do. Good luck out there. Coming in at number 2 is this Porta-Brace videography or photography vest. This thing I've had for about a year. I got it at a Salvation Army and I paid $13. This thing was brand new, still had the tags. It sold for $109.99. That's $100 plus $99 in shipping. I think I took a best offer on this one. The net return for the second best flip of the week was $72.79. So photography accessories, things like this can do really, really well. I'd never heard of this brand, but it was new with tags. I think it had an original price tag on there of like $200 and some. So I figured at $13 it would be worth a shot. Did take a long time to sell. I did take a best offer, but happy to get it out the door for the second best flip of the week. That leaves us with number 1, this vintage Don Post Studios Mummy Monster Halloween mask from 1977. This thing was only listed for 4 days. I got it at a garage sale for only $1. This thing was amazing. My wife actually picked it up. She said, "What do you think about this?" And I was looking around all over it, trying to find out if there was a marking on it or some sort of date, something to indicate its age or origin. And I didn't see it. I couldn't find anything on there, but I could just tell it was sort of a heavy mask. It was only $1, so I bought it anyway. Once I got it home, I looked at it a little bit more closely. I was able to find this Don Post Studios signature on it and the date of 1977. And once I saw that, I was like, ooh, this is probably going to be pretty good. Because if you look at the comps for Don Post Studio masks from this era, they range anywhere from $200 all the way up to over $1,000 for a single mask. It's very, very crazy. This one did not end up being that good. I listed it around the $370 mark. There's only one identical that had been sold, and it sold for $270 on a best offer. By the way, if you're looking to find out what a best offer sold for, because when you check sold comps, you'll see the item price just crossed out if it was a best offer. Just take that title, copy it, and go into Terapeak or Product Research and search by that exact title. If you look at that exact listing through Terapeak or Product Research, you will see the actual sale price that the best offer was taken on. Anyway, this one was $270. So when somebody offered $250, I was like, sure, I'll take it. Actually, there's another reason that I took an offer for $250 on this. I can't talk about it right now. It's going to be the subject of a future video, so keep an eye out for that. Either way, I paid $1 for it. It sold for $256, a net return of $203. I'm not mad at all. I probably could have got a little bit more money, but I will take the $200 any day of the week. But this is just a really fun one. Get that Halloween stuff listed if you haven't already. Keep an eye out for these masks. The old ones can do really, really well, especially these Don Post Studio masks. Super cool, super fun one. Excited to get it out the door for the best flip of the week. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, YouTube thinks you might like this other video of mine, so check it out.